Well, I think we know why we're here, which is to really honor and celebrate the life and legacy of Malika Endres. And we've all known her for different periods of time, different durations. And there's going to be a time, in fact, the heart of the ceremony is really going to be opening it up to share memories, experiences, times you've had with her, so that the fullness of her may come a little more fully into the room as we bring in those different sides and those different experiences. I just want to acknowledge that while this is truly meant to be a celebration, that it's also a dear loss, and that just all feelings are welcome here. I'm hoping there will be joy and laughter, and if there are tears and sadness, that makes complete sense too. And that we're here really to not only celebrate, but ride those waves together. So just making room for everything. I'll also mention that after we do the sharing of memories, that we will transition to Dances of Universal Peace, which were really meaningful to Malika, and there will be 3 dances, 2 of which she created, and I'll let the dance leaders talk a little more about that when we get to that point. And there'll also, at the conclusion of that, be food to share and a time to socialize before we disperse for the afternoon. So I'm going to start with lighting the candles for the Universal Worship Service. I suspect that many of you are already familiar with this. It was something very dear to Malika as a Shiraga in this tradition. And the intention is to offer a time to come together in worship, whether you belong to a particular tradition, don't belong to any, but coming together in community and light and love and contemplation. So if you know it, I'm going to invite you to recite aloud with me the Sufi invocation as we begin. Toward the One, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. I'm going to light this first candle to evoke the divine feminine and honor the goddess traditions. I'm going to light this candle to honor the indigenous traditions and to offer gratitude, especially to the Coast Miwok and Pomo tribes on whose land we are celebrating today. And I light this candle for divine wisdom expressed through Hinduism. I light this candle to evoke divine purity expressed in the Zoroastrian tradition. Yes, celebrating. I light this candle to evoke divine compassion expressed in Buddhism. I light this candle to evoke the divine law, the divine covenant expressed in Judaism. I I light this candle to honor and evoke divine self-sacrifice expressed in Christianity. And I light this candle evoking divine unity expressed in Islam. And we honor all those who, whether known or unknown to the world, have held aloft the light of truth. We're going to take about 5 minutes in kind of your own personal meditation and reflection. I'm going to put on a song that lasts about 5 minutes, and I invite you to just let your thoughts and your heart kind of drift back to different moments of time spent with Malika. It's a time to offer any of your own personal prayers and good wishes on her journey. And as it is with almost everyone I've ever met and life in general, there'll probably be a mixture of really fun times, maybe troubled times, funny times, difficult times. Just kind of goes with the territory. So when it comes time to share some of the things that come to you now, maybe something you'd like to share with the group, or they may be things you'd like to keep as your own private remembrance. So we'll take a few minutes for that now.
cross the stormy sea. Close your eyes, don't look back. There's nothing left to see. The other night you came to me like an angel, you appeared, and we climbed the endless sky and held each other near. And there we stand, looking out upon the world that we've known. All fear will be gone when we reach the shores of Avalon. When we reach the shores of Avalon. When we reach the shores of Avalon. Be brave, my love.
Ruby said, "This is love, to fly toward a secret sky, to cause 100 veils to fall each moment, first to let go of life, finally to take a step without feet." And Tagore said, "Where is she? Where is the one that I love? She is in my eyes. She is in my bones. She is in my soul." Some of you may be wondering how I came to officiate the service. I know some of you, but not everyone. And I've actually known Malika for a long time. Back in the days, if you know them, in the Sufi history of Sami Mahal. But we had an unusual relationship because there was an intense closeness without really spending a lot of time together. Between circumstances and where we lived and the way our lives were involved, it was more that kind of friendship where there's some kind of an immediate recognition. Almost as though there's something that echoes back through time that's past this lifetime that just says, "Oh, hi, it's you." And that always seemed to be present whenever we did have the opportunity to be together, which honestly wasn't that often. But I think we recognized something in each other's spirit and maybe shared some values, shared some aesthetics. And we did briefly work together for a time as Shiragas, and we informally had created something we called the Ministry for the Human Family, as a way to kind of stretch beyond the Sufi community and offer a spiritual, non-denominational wedding services and memorials, and just make that available to folks who might not have a faith community. So that was a really lovely way that we came together for a while in time. I'd like to start the sharing with some papers that were discovered as her home was sorted out. And this appears to be a paper that she wrote when she was about 35. And it reflects back on her life up to that point. And it's kind of long, so I've chosen just some excerpts from it. But you can really kind of feel her young voice and spirit coming through in this. There was a time when I understood that I am how I am. That was simply the end of that line of reasoning. Sounds like her. Out of the pain, though, of a disintegrating marriage, I began the process of opening myself to other experiences and perceptions of the world, tearing down old, worn-out psychological structures and trying on new ways of being. Along the way, I have been astonished to learn how constrained my reality was and what a monumental project it is to break down old rigidities. Certainly, well-defined grooves of behavior continue to cause random pockets of strong resistances, or is it just the reverse? In any case, I see myself as a person who continues to be involved in looking at old material when it comes up, who has become aware of still emerging parts of her psyche, exploring and admitting them into her being, who gives herself a lot more freedom to live with uncertainties and indecisions, and who reflects on how it is that her being, her psyche, her issues fit into the sometimes awesome, sometimes simple, cosmic scheme of things. My journey began in 1940 when my mother delivered a healthy but threatened 8-pound blue baby. The first recollection I have, or so it seems, but how can anyone be sure of these things, is piercing screaming coming out from what turned out to be the 3-year-old me. The diagnosis was acute appendicitis and required operation within the hour or else. The first recollection I have of Dad is when I was 5, during a visit to Mom, and by then, the 4 of us children made it to a rainy day in Norfolk, Virginia. We loved splashing in mud puddles and even swinging over them upside down in a hammock. By some magical maneuver, I would wrap my left limbs in one of the 2 hammock folds and my right limbs in the others. The memory of swinging in that fashion, with the front of my body almost brushing the huge mud puddle beneath, and the rain gently falling on the backside of the hammock, transports me instantly to some other place, a soft, warm, brown, velvety, at the same time mysterious and familiar place. About the time I approached adolescence, Mom and Dad decided, after many comings and goings on Dad's part, that they couldn't, after all, keep it together, and the family was legally divided, with the 2 youngest children going to live with Dad, and my sister and I remaining with Mom. Mother's remarriage took my sister and me to California to begin a new life. But that separation from the other 2 children was so painful for Mom that after a year of the four of us accompanying ourselves to living in a 27-foot mobile trailer and riding the bus 10 miles to school and being able to buy Fritos between classes. We forfeited the Sunday rides back over the Santa Monica Mountains to the ocean and headed back to Michigan to set up housekeeping in still another cramped living arrangement, this time a 40-foot mobile home. My early schooling can best be described as mostly authoritarian. I learned well that by following rules and being an outstanding achiever, I would be rewarded with approval and positive evaluations from instructors and administrators. And sure enough, this model of functioning in the world worked in high school as well. At Michigan State University, I struggled with academics, never really understanding why I was studying Greek statues or dissecting a frog. I was always going off to teach dancing, while the rest of the dorm was readying itself for a big football game. Social activities seemed to elude me. Business administration was my major until a couple of low grades nudged me into considering a different direction. The only other background I had short of secretarial was 3 years of coursework in Spanish, so voila, I became a foreign languages major. It would be fair to say, all in all, I threaded my way through the entire program unscathed by any significant gathering of knowledge about myself or the world. For as long as I can remember, I only wanted to someday leave Michigan and all the people in it, and following graduation, I did just that. I began a vastly different lifestyle. Well, that is, once the first order of business was taken care of. After nursing myself through a tonsillectomy recovery and armed with new contact lenses and decorated by orthodontic appliances, I entered a new world. Cocktail hour, Wall Street Journal, financial and annual reports, corporate stock, board meetings, stockholder limits, business luncheons, government contracts, missile programs, intelligence, and top secret clearances. During the 2 of the 7 years I spent in the aerospace industry, I lived and worked in Paris. I constructed a new wardrobe, readied my trunks, and considered the possibility of dismantling what had by now become a burdensome state of virginity. After all, what if the ship were to sink and I were to drown? There I would be in whatever afterlife without ever having had sex. It worked out nicely that my tennis instructor was an attractive young man whose qualities included ease in initiating such behavior. Living alone in a foreign milieu at age 25 seemed to be the stimulus for the early beginnings of intimacy with my own soul. I came away from the Paris experience with some hints about the notion of existentiality and a lot of untapped material neatly bundled and tucked away. Sometime after returning to Los Angeles, I met John and followed a 2-year stormy courtship, and then we married. I loved John's ability to support me, having someone who would take care of me in ways I had not experienced, even from my parents or anyone else for that matter. John loved me, and I was believing that I loved him. It seemed like it was going to be a marvelous adventure. But I opened to my own inner chambers because I understood eventually that I could no longer slide along, pinning my dreams, values, and ambitions on him. After the marriage breakup, I continued in therapy and soon clarified for myself that I wanted to go back to school, to study an area that was pulling in more and more parts of me. For the last 3 years, side by side with learning more about human behavior in the academic sphere of psychology, I had been intensely involved with my own process, intrapsychically and interpersonally. I began reclaiming previously disowned parts of myself, so that I may experience the whole range of emotions. Expand my consciousness in a way that allowed me to really connect with others in a way I have never before been able to. Feedback from my psyche, my body, and the people in my life reaffirms my choice of path for this growth, and it feels good. It's her at 35. So I'd like to open it up now. Any little or big stories, memories, you're welcome to come up here. You're welcome to stay where you are. It's just a chance to share with each other. So would anyone like to do that?
When I was sitting here being quiet and listening to the music, in my mind I saw Malika running across the field, laughing. She really loved nature. I think that's true. She's free and laughing. My memories of her are much like yourself. And thank you so much for conducting this today. I met her in 1988 in a Sufi house in San Rafael. She was my roommate. I think she had finished her psychology degree at that time and was practicing as a psychologist. And we went to ceremony, we went to study hall, practice, and we would live together. We were family. And throughout the years, we would run into each other, and there was always immediate affinity. And I'm sure Shiranga as well, and of course we loved dance, but I just loved her, and I think that she was such an interesting person. What you read shows a little bit about that. She was so complex. She was witty. She could have a wicked sense of humor and very truthful. She could, to me, when I first met her, I could recognize that. But at the same time, she was very fragile and gentle, and we had this humility about her. That's interesting. I mean, you know, you couldn't really pin something on her, but we shared a number of the Native American way was one, and love of nature. And throughout the years, I would always make it a point to embrace her and touch base, because I don't feel she's a sister in our family, in our Sunni family, and such a light. And also, I just want to say that I think she gave of herself in service in a really heartfelt way, and I really appreciate that. So.
I'll share something. My name's Carol Arvisura. I've known Malika for many years and helped her throughout the last number of years. But I got a couple of letters here. I'll just read one right now and maybe another one later. From a dear friend, Louise Jacobus. Malika, she and I were kind of a trio at dance camps together. And we'd sort of talk afterwards about the dynamics of all the people and how we were doing, and shared a lot of intimate, fun time together. So this is from Louise, who couldn't be here. She lives in San Diego. Dear Malika, my wonderful friend, you were a truth teller, a sage, and a devoted lover of God. Your time on earth has truly made the world a more loving place. Thank you for coming to be with us. I remember the very first moment I met you, Malika. It was 30 years ago at the Intensive Study Center at Lama Foundation near Taos, New Mexico. I had just driven up from Albuquerque and I was exhausted from the drive, from the packing and preparations, and especially from the effort of getting my overly large suitcase up from the car to the door of my room at the ISC. The Intensive Studies Center was an adobe structure with small sleeping rooms off of a central courtyard. The doors to the sleeping rooms were short, so low that even a small person had to duck down to avoid hitting her head. Unfortunately, in my exhaustion, I miscalculated as I entered the room and smashed my forehead on the wooden lintel above the doorway. I burst into tears. Malika happened to be standing a few feet away in front of her doorway. She came right over and asked me if I wanted a hug. I sobbed, yes, and she held me so gently and with such love. I was a complete stranger at that point, but I fell into her comforting arms as she hugged me, and we were friends from that moment on. I will miss you, Malika, your fierce integrity, your passion for truthfulness, your delight in the details of all the many paths to the one God. You are a humble soul who lived with great dignity. You were a true friend. I will miss you. Love all, Miss Louise.
I met Malika in, I think, 1987, 86 maybe. Can you hear me? At quarterlies for the Dances of Universal Peace when they were held in Pescadero, thank you. And I didn't talk much in those days. I slept in my own van rather than with the group. Malika was one of the many people who reached out to me and was very kind, engaging me in conversation. And at that time I was studying for my finals, and she encouraged me that I would do well. And I admired her dance leading so much there. You know, she was so elegant, like an angel, very solid yet ethereal. So some 10 years later, when I finally decided I would like to be a dance leader, she was the natural choice to be my mentor. And she was a wonderful mentor. We had fun times, we had difficult times. Always she was dedicated, focused, really gave a good grounding. So I thank her for many years of good guidance. I know she's dancing free and beautifully across the cosmos.
I guess I'll share. I'm gonna start by reading his letters. These are from Malika's nieces who came recently, just before she died. And they were lovely women who obviously loved their dear aunt so much. So I'll start with this. Malika Merrill Endres was a very dear, sweet, loving person, and I had the privilege of calling her Aunt Malika. Although I didn't get to spend as much time as I would have liked, I corresponded with her often. But I will always cherish the time I had with her. And it was a great comfort to know she had such a great support system in California. All of you who spent the most time with her. My sister Chris and I had the opportunity to visit her before she passed. It was a blessing for me to see her one last time. And it was an honor to meet Carol and Fatima. two of her closest friends. Would have been nice to meet all of you as well, but I'm unable to attend her celebration of life. Thank you for all of you that made her life so special. Malika's niece, Lisa, and her other niece. My aunts are my heroes. Aunt Makara, Malika's little sister, and my Aunt Malika, so close yet so far away, California. The precious times that we worked together, I remember well. Aunt Malika saved me more than a few times. As a little girl in the 60s, it was improbable to, as a girl, think that you could do anything. Malika was a fine example that you could do everything. From moving to California on her own, a world traveler, a world peace promoter, that's just so big. She was invincible. I had never realized the full impact until I sat down to write about my dearest Aunt Malika. The path she laid for us girls, unstoppable, never wavering, kind, awesome, smile, strong and beautiful. To go so far and do so much on her own. When Uncle Erwin came along, wow, what a great person. Aunt's smile was much brighter. We were all so happy that they found someone so special, a time so brief. Very thankful that Aunt Malika has so many great, close people in her life. We were able to get to see her at her birthday time and met of her close friends, some of her close friends. You can see the love they have for Aunt Malika as well. I'm thankful for all of you and Erwin's children. Thank you for sharing your time and love for her. And then she, in parentheses, puts, it's not what you take with you, it's what you leave behind. Blessings to all, Chris. And I've known Malika since the 80s, did a dream class with her that she had for quite some time. And knew her off and on through all the various transitions that she made. My name is Fatima. And then when she moved to Windsor, I got to spend more time with her. And we met for meals often. And she was amazing in that she knew that she was declining mentally. I was in denial a lot longer than she was, very much so. And so I kept trying to help her with working with the computer and using a cell phone, and she just wasn't getting it, and I wasn't getting that she no longer could do those things. And eventually, she was the one that determined that she really needed to, sell her house, move to a place where she could be cared for. And amazingly, she made that transition and was able to do all that with her declining capacity. She was able to make that decision and make that move in such a graceful way. And watching her through the last 2 years of her life, she would have moments of lucidity where she just would say the most amazing things. I remember taking her to the dentist one time, and she's sitting in the dentist chair, and she's like, I'm on this journey, and it's going to end soon, and I'm on this, this journey. And anyway, it was just one of the things she would just pop out with. But the most touching time that I spent with her was just briefly before she died, and she had stopped being really able to eat or drink or walk or talk. And I went there, and she was bedridden at that time, and I was with her. And she was able to have eye contact with me for a really extended period of time. And she actually was able, she just mouthed these words as she's just gently touching me, and she just said, appreciate the last time I really had that kind of connection with her, but she was just an amazing, dear friend.
This is a little, just an anecdote of a time when it was 2007 and there were 75 of us who went to India with Kirshanda. And Malika was in that group. Is anybody else here in that group? Well, so maybe you'll collaborate. So one day, as was our habit, we would go to these little restaurants around where we were staying, and Malika was there having lunch, and all of a sudden she realized that her purse was no longer on the chair where she was sitting. Oh my God, this is panic time when you're in another country. And so she moved into gear, and everything just started in motion about how to get this back, and there was just so much energy around it. And literally, I don't think it was even an hour after that this young Indian man comes running up to the little hotel where we were staying with Malika's purse. Now the first amazing thing is that how many people do this? Put an ID in your purse where you're staying. I mean, that's just such an amazing thing. So that the purse can come back to you. That in itself was really strong of Malika's groundedness. But here she was with this young man, and she immediately, of course, fell in love with him. And it was, how can I repay you? How can I repay you? I know. I'll send you to school. I'll adopt you. I'll take you. Anyway, that was Malika's heart and her
I have another letter, and it sort of follows on Gushi's story. This is from Dana Dakin, who knew her back in those days that she wrote about, living in Paris and then marrying John Bayliss. So she fills in a little bit here, but you'll see that this delightful quality that Malika had, a wink in her eye and a witty joke or a phrase, and a flirt comes out in this letter. I remember the first time Nancy Merrill wafted by my desk at Planning Research Corporation, headquartered in Westwood, Los Angeles. Word was out that we had a new transfer from our outpost in Europe, and there she was, bringing immediate light. Nancy dressed like a Parisian, flitted like a trained dancer, and flirted like all girl. I transferred with the company to New York City, and the next I heard, she had married the impossible to catch John Bayliss, a brilliant consultant with PRC. When I returned to California, back home in the Northern Bay Area, specifically Marin, she found me and stopped by for a visit with John. Staying in touch was one of Malika's gifts. I lived on Panoramic Highway in Mill Valley, exactly where BMWs turn into VW vans. And my husband and I had one of each, plus a new baby boy. I was a hanger-on hippie wannabe, and I remember John introducing me to Toots and the Maytals in our kitchen, which was still down to the studs, thanks to the previous owner, as we were gathering enough money to build it out again. Then the next I knew Nancy was Malika, living as part of a Sufi community. She invited me to a Sufi dance celebration as her guest, and I was amazed by the number and diversity of people and the physical commitment to the dance practice. We would visit off and on in Marin and farther north, bridging our very different lives over the next 30 years. What a span of time we shared going back to the late 60s. Here's the thing. She retained that French style with knees bent to the side, back straight, shoulders cocked at the assisted living where Dana visited her, living where she returned after the hospital stay. She was the same. God bless you, Malika, and may we all thrive with a spiritual path as direct as you created. May we follow our heart, find our gift, and live in community. Love, Dana Dakin.
I met Malika in '97 when she emerged out of Laytonville to start leading a dance meeting in Willits. And I recognized a teacher in her. And so very soon I started studying with her. She was giving mentoring workshops up on her property in Laytonville, and I started going to those just because I was interested in finding out more about the dancers. And very soon I committed to the training with her to learn to lead the dancers, and it was quite an extensive training. I think it took about 8 years before I was certified because she had so much to teach, because she went so deeply into the dances. And it totally transformed the whole meaning of doing the dances. The other jewel that she gave me was the yoga practice. I started attending her yoga classes, and gosh, how that transformed my physical being. And I was so grateful to what she was teaching and the purity of the technique that she was bringing through. So when she left the area, because we wouldn't have a teacher, I went to India and studied the same course, and that's been a huge part of my life now for 20 years. So that's the second jewel. The third jewel was the charade training, which she led me into, deepening still. And the fourth jewel was actually her friendship and the traveling we did together. We went to the first gathering in Mardahadi in Chacala in Mexico, where Wali Ali was teaching. Kathy Mariam, Darvesha, Malika, and I all went together. And shortly after that, Malika started doing workshops there with Darvesha, so I went a couple more times with her. And that was great. That was a superb place to be and to do practices. And then the last trip we took was to Turkey in 2013. And it was hard because already, she was showing signs of dementia. She knew this was going to be her last trip, but it was so good that we went there and we went to all the places that we did, to Rumi's tomb, and to where Rumi met Shams of Tabriz, and to the dervish dancing, and Cappadocia, to all the incredible rock formations there. We had a really wonderful trip together, and really grateful for knowing her, for having her been such a big part of my life and everything she's given me. Yay.
My heart's thumping so loud, it's as loud as Malika's drum. My name's Artemis, and well, one thing I want to say is Malika was really into she loved astrology, and she would always make reference to the fact that she was a Pisces, a water sign, and all of her moons and all this. And it was just, it dawned on me as I looked out the window and saw the shimmering pool out there, you know, seeing the water. Of course there would be water here for Malika. I met Malika in the early 90s, and I was doing zikr, a spiritual practice, with a sheikh by the name of Wahid, who lived in Sabi Mahal for quite a while. He lived in Willits, and he had a little health food store. In the back of that health food store, we would do zikr every two times a week. And one day, he told me that a mentor and dance leader named Malika was coming to town, and she was going to be moving to Laytonville. And she was a guitarist, and I guess the people who were going to be playing for her didn't work out that they were going to be able to do that. And I only knew a couple of, chords on a standard guitar. And I don't know what, it must have been spirit, because normal people don't just jump up and say, oh, I'll do that, And he says, good, you do that. and so when she moved here, I began going to her house, and they were in the beginning of building this house, and Erwin, who was the dad of, oh my gosh, my name is Orion. Yes, I know your name. I'm so nervous. Anyway, he was an amazing man, and he was tall, and he was strong, and he was capable, and he was knowledgeable, and he was such a perfectionist as to everything that was going to be built, and he was taking on building this house all by himself, and laying the foundations, pouring the cement, clearing the land. And meanwhile, Malika, she has her dream group going on in Marin County. She's got her therapeutic practice that she's busy traveling back and forth. And then she's got her spiritual community in the Bay Area and Marin County. And in the meantime, every little bit of time she'd be running into Home Depot, looking at all the faucets. Oh, those are not right. Looking at all the little knobs that are going to go on, or what color the rug is going to be, and what kind of shape the wall is going to have. And the cabinets, the drawers, they had to slide very easily in her kitchen. And, she was spending all this time, creating her dream home. And Erwin was her dream manifestor. And it was the most beautiful team together. And they didn't even have drinking water there. She'd have all these bottles in the back of her car, and she'd have to stop when we were going here or there and get all the water bottles filled up before she'd get home. But meanwhile, here she is with me, this ignoramus guitar person, and here she's used to playing with all these very advanced musicians, and I'm supposed to learn the open tune guitar. Well, I had no idea what that was, and she sent me to a lesson or two with Nancy Norris, and the work began, and every week, 2 times a week, I'd be in her house. We'd spend hours, we'd go through the practice and the music, and I'm trying to learn how to play this open tune guitar. And of course, she wanted me to play the melody of every song. And I had to watch her feet. Watch my feet, she would say. Because her feet, you are not. You are the support for the dancers. That is the work of the guitarist. So you don't worry, that's your job, just to support the dancers. And so she was giving me all these beautiful teachings of humility and understanding the purpose of the music and what that means for the dancer. And it was so beautiful when And you know, I struggled for a year, and there would be times where I just burst out in tears, and she'd just get me tissues, and you know, and, you know, my little fingers, you know, they just weren't getting it the best. And sometimes, but thanks to Nancy Norris, all you have to do is just do this. Just keep the beat, you know, and do this. The dancers can get it, you know. And so that sometimes I had to do that, and boy, my ego would be in there, you know, wishing I could play the melody, but I guess I'm just gonna do this, you know. And I learned so much. But it was a very big sandpaper time for me, the wood. And, but in 1 year, all of a sudden, it all came together. I got it, how the open tune worked. And pretty soon I was playing melodies and actually really being that person that, you know, she needed me to be. And I loved our practices together. And I loved spending time with Endres, that's how his mama called him, and Malika. And, you know, we'd be clearing brush, and I'd be helping him pour cement. And, you know, you know, we'd be doing trees and clearing space, because her vision was that she was going to have her mentees come to her home. And she wanted to make it a beautiful time for them, like a retreat, and give them the best food, and, you know, have them be comfortable. And I was always a part of that. And I actually, it was kind of like, we had all these multiple relationships. I was, you know, like, I was like a child with a mom and a dad. And, you know, I was her musician, and sometimes I'd be taking care of her. Malika got terrible migraine headaches. And sometimes, but she would never let the pain get in the way of if she had to lead a circle. And there was a time we were in Las Vegas, and we were going to be doing a dance meeting that night, and she was in terrible, terrible pain. And I was massaging her shoulders and getting her ice packs, and, you know, like, you sure you don't want to just cancel this? You know, oh, no, it's going to be okay, you know. And sure enough, she just rose herself up and got a shower and got dressed, and she walked out there with the most beautiful grace, and you would have never known that Malika was in pain. And there were many times like that where she could rise above her pain and go out and be a beautiful dance leader. And, you know, Malika, she was dedicated to the purpose of the dances. And when Merchant Sam was alive, people learned to be dance leaders, and they all did that. But there wasn't any like system and training and something repeatable that you could have done in any country, anywhere, where you would know the system, know the steps, know the music, everything. All this was not all documented yet. And Malika, not only was she an angel, but she was a warrior, and she was a scribe. And she had all those skills from her business. You know, she knew shorthand, you know, she was typing. She didn't like the computer very much, and thank goodness for editing, because he knew the computer, and she was always calling him to get her out of her glitches on the computer. And sometimes she would get home and she'd have like 200 emails on her computer where she was like answering all the questions as the mentoring guidelines. Well, the first thing was creating the organization of the dances of universal peace. This was a huge undertaking. And you know, all the people who were with Merchant Sam were so used to like doing it the way they did it. They're all dancing in the park and saying Golden Gate Park, and they were free. They had freedom. And suddenly there were these guidelines. Malika, loving the rules, you know, was very right there but rules needed to be had in order to make it repeatable and reproducible, you know. So she spent hours and hours and hours getting this all into content and getting it written down and having meetings with the board and Sadi, who, you know, it was given to him to create this, I should say. She just took the torch, and she loved him so much and loved what she did. And then the mentoring process came, where you would have to be able to teach mentees how to lead the dances and have that be a more uniform way, so that there could be some structure. So there was a lot of issues among the people, and there was some clashing going on of the old way and the new way. And all of those psychological skills that she had came in very handy, because she was able to negotiate and talk to people and help ease people into the new way and grandfather the old people in and let them be how they are. And it was huge. It was just huge. But she carried such a load. And I don't know, I admired her just so much in every way. And the last thing I want to say is that Malika was so tender, so she was all those powerful, wonderful things, and she was also so affectionate. And she always wished she would have had a little child of her own. And she loved her family. She adopted Erwin's, family and children, and made sure they all had gifts and visits and all these wonderful things. And she loved her little cat, Ramona, who, oh my gosh, Ramona was doing something, and she just looked like Malika, the two of them, around the house, and she'd be petting Ramona all the time, and talking to Ramona, and feeding Ramona, and I just felt so a part of that family. And sometimes she would sing this song. And I made a copy for everybody, because I don't know if, I never did ask her where she got this song from. I'll just pass them out and, and sometimes at decision times, when there were really big decisions to make, and you could go this way, you could go that way, and you're not really sure, and you're waiting for the guidance, what to do. And she would sing this little song. It's just such a simple little song. And anyway, I'll wait till it gets passed out, and I'll sing it for you. And then if you would like to sing it with me, you can sing it with me. So it goes like this. Love is little, love is low. Love will make the flowers grow. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that's right. And that was her song. Would you like to sing it with me?
Sure, let's try.
Love is little, love is low. Love will make the flowers grow. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that's right. And in closing, I would just like to read. I like to read out of this little book. It's called Aspects of the One, the 99 Names of God, a tool for use in the daily practice of oneness. And this one, every night I've been sitting, holding Malika's beads, and just contemplating, there's so much to say. What will I say? I couldn't ever write it down. I wasn't really good at that. But this one, it was the opposite of the other side. I've been practicing for a long time. And then I turned the book over and I read this side and I was like, wow, this I'm gonna read. It's Al-Hayy, the alive. This is one of the 99 beautiful names in the Islamic tradition of Allah. Science is searching for a mathematically describable first cause of aliveness. Could it be possible to describe such a first cause? How to define alive? Is a rock alive? Is anything not alive? How do you experience aliveness? Do you experience it any other time than the present moment? Walk with Al-Hayy today and notice whether there is anywhere Al-Hayy is not. And in my heart, and I know in yours, Malika is alive. She's alive in the dances. She's alive in eternity. And we will always be celebrating her gift to each of us in our own special way and to the dances of universal peace.
Thank you.
Anyone else have to share?
Well, I can certainly not follow that. But I did want to say something. I'm Barbara Julia. Oh, sorry, I was talking so I was one of those people that had this kind of relationship with Malika when I first met her. I met her in when she was building her house, and she had actually an event there, a Dances of Universal Peace event, and I was leading a dance the way I learned in Sonoma County, and it was the free type of dancing, and it was corrected. And I was furious, you know? It was like, don't you know, we have it better in Sonoma County. I mean, you know, they had a small meeting. I said, our meeting, we have 100 people that come every week, you know? I mean, we know what's best. And so, anyway, she and I had that type of relationship in the very beginning. Woo! And I just thought, you know, this woman doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't know love. She doesn't know, you know, I had all this judgment, a lot of judgment. But, you know, I really came to love Malika. And we started out in that way. And I think sometimes when you start a relationship and all your anger and your judgment comes out, you have an opening for something better. And so I came to love Malika, and I came to appreciate her corrections. I actually asked her to be my mentor and spent a couple of years with her, going every week to her house and learning the dances. And she would say to me, you know, we would work with just the two of us, you know, for a couple hours, you know. And she'd be saying, no, you're not doing it right. This is the way you do it. And where before I would be angry, I said, no, she's trying to help me. She's trying to teach me discipline. She's trying to teach me correction, something I never got as a child, something I never got because I was able to run free my whole life. And so I really value all those different things that she taught me. And at the end, when she had to stop mentoring me, it was really difficult. And she told me she was having, you know, mental and physical things going on. And she said, I could no longer mentor you. And she was then sold her house and moved, and I could not visit her. I could not do it. It was, and I feel, in a way, I feel guilty about it. I feel pain about it, but I saw her as such a strong person that I couldn't go. I couldn't go, and I felt like she was in my heart. I needed to see her the way she was then. I couldn't see the change. I couldn't do it. And so that's a weakness in me, I know. But I don't regret a minute I left her. I mean, she would come to dance meetings and watch how I danced, like dances, and then come home and correct me and tell me what I was doing. But, you know, whereas before I would get angry, I stopped the anger. The anger went away. It was like, she loves me so much. She's willing to point out the truth. And isn't truth what we're looking for in life? Truth, the truth of all things. And so that's what I got from Malika, is the truth of what is actually happening in my life. And I thank God for her. I really do. And I thank that I met her and that we were able to start our relationship one way and end it in another way.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Orion Irwins, or Aarons. My first actual recollection of Malika was when my dad mentioned her name. It was ironically right about the time he sold his Datsun coupe and bought a bright red Pontiac Firebird. So I'm not sure if that has to do with it. Yeah, the three things I remember most about Malika is one, she made my dad the happiest he's ever been in his entire life. You know, and for him to go out and spend all kinds of money on a brand new car, kind of like, okay, that's interesting. The second thing is, she alwawas made a point being in our house at Christmas and most years around Thanksgiving or so. And she really did, you were right, or was it Fatima, I can't remember, one of you mentioned, she stressed about the gifts for the kids. And I don't know why that was the case, but she wanted to make those things perfect. And I have to admit, she chose it very nicely. She had an insight into our kids that was actually quite impressive. And the third thing is I would describe her as quirky. And after listening to some of the stories here, somebody mentioned about the French prim. I saw that, I went, oh God, that is Malika, and that's the quirkiness about her. So, and that quirkiness clearly transcended all different kinds of lifestyles and different beliefs and stuff. And you have the group like Carol and Fatima and Artemis all hanging in there with her at the very end. I mean, that clearly could not have been a pleasant situation. And, you know, she had some dear friends for that. And I want to thank you all for that. You know, it's really true that she did culture or did develop quite a community. So thank you.
Say one more. Yes, please. I just want to say thank you all for coming. And Malika had a community here at Windsor Senior Center. That's one reason we decided to hold the event here. And one lady, Donna, showed up. She's had to leave early. And once the date was set, then people told us they couldn't come. And choosing the first weekend in September, I'm not surprised. You know, there's a lot of events going on. But I wanted to mention the Senior Center and also, again, her family in Michigan. And they just adore her. They'll get this videotape so they can participate today. And they also thanked those of us who hung in there with Malika at the end just so profusely. I'll just say that her passing was quite beautiful. We held a vigil the last 3 days. Artemis came down, Faith, other people, Sierra Lynn, Abdul Qudus was there. But Fatima, myself, and Artemis, we hung in there. And she, you know, the years of practicing yoga paid off. She had a yogic breath that was just so steady that she went on for days with this breath. Wow. And so we sang zikr to her rhythm and prayed with her, sang songs. And she never was in pain and died quite quickly and peacefully. So there's a blessing in that. for all of us who participated in End of Her Life. Just want to say again, thanks to all of you. And it's really thrilling to be here with all of you and remember Malika and all the wonderful and quirky and critical ways that she was. We were Pisces sisters to later.
Anyone else before we transition to a couple of dances? Okay, I want to just, as part of the transition, just recite the Lord's Prayer translated by Sadi from the original Aramaic, which she really, really loved. Father, Mother of the cosmos, focus your light within us. Create your reign of unity now. Your one desire then acts with ours, as in all light, so in all forms. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight. Loose the cords of mistakes binding us as we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back. From you is born all ruling will, the power and the life to do, the song that beautifies all, from age to age it renews. Truly, power to these statements. May they be the ground from which all our actions grow. Okay, so let's maybe rearrange the room.
Oh, that's right, before that, go ahead, join hands. And let's once again say the invocation. Taking a step with your right foot. Toward one, the direction of love, harmony, and beauty. We humbly being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Bismillah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah, who is mercy and compassion. So we're going to do Malika's dance. Ganesha. Yeah. She was very connected to the Hindu tradition. Ganesha removes obstacles, helps us break through obstacles, clears the path. The words are Ganesha Sharanam. Ganesha Sharanam. Sharanam Ganesha. Sharanam Ganesha. So we honor you, Ganesh, the elephant-headed deity. Let's see. Ganesha Sharanam. Sharanam Ganesha. Ganesha Sharanam. Sharanam Ganesha. Ganesha Sharanam. Sharanam Ganesha. Ganesha Sharanam. Sharanam Ganesha. Sounds like everybody is familiar with that melody. So let's go move on to the movements. From the heart energy, we're going to step in for Ganesha Sharanam. Sharanam Ganesha. Ganesha Sharanam. Sharanam Ganesha. Walking right. Ganesha Sharanam. Sharanam Ganesha. Ganesha Sharanam. Sharanam Ganesha. Ganesha Sharanam.
Wavy, oh. Malika. All of us.
So Malika's other composition, two of them that she wrote that we know of, is called The Two Beautiful Names. And these are the two qualities or attributes of the one that I mentioned first in the 99 Names of Allah. And they are Er-Rahman and Er-Rahim. Er-Rahman. No, that's just saying. So Er-Rahman is, they both are qualities of divine love. Er-Rahman is a more extrovert, more masculine expression of compassion and kindness, more solar energy. And Er-Rahim is a more feminine, lunar, reflective, nurturing quality of this divine love or mercy. So the melody goes like this. Er-Rahman, Er-Rahim Allah, Er-Rahman, Er-Rahim, Er-Rahman, Er-Rahim.
So we will end with the kalama. Kalama means the seal. And Murshid Sam used this often as his closing dance. And the words are La ilaha el ilahu, which means there is none but the one. And Muhammada Rasulullah, which is Muhammad is the prophet who brought this oneness and united so many disparaging tribes and brought them into oneness, as it is always spreading now throughout the world. So we begin with our step back on the left foot. I think a lot of everybody knows it pretty much. Let's just go into it. Okay, starting with your left foot, 4 steps back and touch, and then 4 steps in. We're going to do that 3 times. Then we're going to turn to the right with our hands up in a receiving mode, and then turn to the left on Muhammadah Rasulullah.
Rasul
just take a moment to feel the love that's been expressed verbally and non-verbally, and the music, the memories, getting to know her even in new ways now. And has also been expressed the ways she continues with us. And all the people she's touched, all the lives, all her service and contributions. Just feel that fullness as an honoring her.